Surprise, look who's here.
Long before he became the beloved sidekick in Smokey and the Bandit, Jerry Reed was a force to be reckoned with, a true legend known as the Guitar Man. And now, this iconic singer-songwriter is being recognized by American veterans for his unforgettable contributions to music and culture, from a tough childhood in foster care to winning not one, not two, but 3 Grammy Awards. Jerry Reed's story embodies the relentless pursuit of the American dream. After years of hard labor in a cotton mill and a dedicated stint in the Army, Reed carved out his place in country music history. Yet, behind the spotlight and roaring applause, he fought a private battle with addiction, a struggle that shadowed his remarkable achievements. Now let's dive into the extraordinary journey of Jerry Reed, a man whose musical genius once defined an era. Though his name has faded from today's music scene, the Atlanta-born singer, actor, and guitarist was a driving force behind country music's explosive mainstream success, a legacy built through his raw talent, dedication, and groundbreaking sound. Country music was missing something, a magnetic spark that could captivate audiences beyond its loyal fan base. The genre was undeniably popular, but it craved a fresh, charismatic face to set a new standard. Perhaps that's why Jerry Reed's rise was so monumental. He wasn't just a good-looking guy. He was a powerhouse talent who could sing, act, and master the guitar with jaw-dropping ease. Even today, when aspiring country musicians pick up a guitar, many try to emulate Reed's unparalleled skill and style. Sources close to the singer revealed he always had a deep conviction that stardom was his destiny, yet his childhood was marked by challenges and scarcity. He grew up in a household that was neither rich nor truly poor, with both parents working tirelessly at a cotton mill. So how did Reed break into the competitive world of music? His story begins on March 20th, 1937, when Robert and Cynthia Hubbard welcomed their second child into the world in Atlanta, Georgia. From the earliest days, Reed was surrounded by music and art. But more than anything, young Jerry was fixated on Nashville, a place where he could write songs, strum his guitar, and finally stand alongside the country legends he admired so much. Growing up in tough conditions, young Jerry Reed often found refuge at his grandparents' home in Rockmart P. County, Georgia. That small town, with its deep-rooted musical heritage, sparked something extraordinary in him. Every time Jerry visited, he'd grab his guitar and run around shouting, "I'm gonna be a star one day." His passion for music was undeniable. Even as a child, his dreams were larger than life. But Jerry's musical education was inconsistent, and his early years were anything but stable. When he was just 4 months old, his parents, Robert and Cynthia, made the difficult decision to divorce. The aftermath was chaotic. They just couldn't figure out the child custody arrangements, shared a source close to the family. With no clear plan in place, Jerry and his sibling were left to carry the emotional weight of their parents' broken marriage. And if that wasn't enough, the family was also plagued by relentless financial strain. Even with double shifts at the cotton mill, there was simply no way to sustain 2 separate households with 2 young children. The result? A tragic, turbulent childhood for Jerry Reed and his sister. Despite having both parents alive, the siblings spent their earliest years bouncing between foster homes and orphanages across Georgia. By the time Reed turned 7, he had already shuffled through multiple foster placements, each move leaving behind a trail of confusion and heartache. Even as a young boy, Jerry carried the heavy burden of knowing that his arrival had added extra strain to his parents' already fragile marriage. It was a harsh reality for someone so young. And yet, as many great musicians have discovered, pain often becomes a wellspring for creativity, a muse for crafting lyrics that tug at the heartstrings. But for a 7-year-old, that emotional weight was nearly impossible to grasp. Thankfully, his mother, Cynthia, refused to let his potential slip away. She recognized her son's natural musical gift, and she was determined to nurture it. "He's got music running through his veins," she once said. And with that conviction, she did everything in her power to help him chase his lofty, idealistic dreams, one note at a time. Determined to give her children a better life, Jerry Reed's mother worked tirelessly at the mill, often taking on extra shifts to earn a few extra pennies. Amid her relentless efforts, she found love again, this time with her co-worker Hubert Howard. The two married in 1944, and for the first time in years, Jerry and his sister were finally able to come back home. Unfortunately, their financial struggles didn't magically disappear. Money remained tight and the family still faced daily hardships. But during those tough times, music became their refuge. And it was young Jerry who became the heart of their home entertainment. His larger-than-life personality shone through his playful antics. He was born to perform. In the evenings, 6-year-old Jerry would grab an imaginary microphone and sing his heart out to whatever tune was playing on the radio. Without a real stage or fancy equipment, he made do with whatever he could find. His mother's hairbrush became his microphone, and the woodpile outside became his spotlight stage. In a 1979 interview with Picken, Reed fondly recalled those moments. "When I was a kid of 6 or 7, I used to get up on the stove woodpile for a stage, and I'd put on the wildest show." And wild it was, because even then, Reed performed like he was destined for something far greater. I'd sit beside the radio and listen to the Grand Ole Opry, playing rhythm on a hairbrush. Those simple makeshift moments were what laid the foundation for Jerry Reed's musical journey. In that same 1979 interview, Reed confessed he was absolutely obsessed with the idea of performing on stage. His dream wasn't just to make it big. He was determined to get to Nashville, sing his songs, and captivate audiences with his music. Unlike most kids his age, Reed never considered a backup plan. He didn't daydream about becoming a doctor, teacher, or factory worker. No, his mind was set. He was convinced that even if he never cracked the secret to country music success, he'd still spend his life playing his guitar in roadside joints and smoky bars, just to share his passion with the world. Of course, destiny had its own plans for Jerry, but more than fate, it was his mother, Cynthia, who recognized that her son's dream deserved a real shot, even if it sounded far-fetched to others. So, after months of meticulous penny pinching at the mill, she managed to save up $7. It wasn't enough for a new guitar, but luck was on their side. A neighbor happened to be selling an old one. Cynthia didn't hesitate. She sealed the deal and proudly handed her son his very first guitar. Jerry was ecstatic, completely over the moon. With his mother's basic knowledge of the instrument as a guide, he eagerly followed her around, constantly pleading, "Show me another chord. Teach me one more." His passion was unstoppable. The boy who once performed with a hairbrush now had the real deal in his hands, and he wasn't about to let that opportunity slip away. Cynthia had her hands full with work, but she always made time for her son. In fact, she was the one who taught the legendary Jerry Reed his very first chords. According to Reed's interviews, his mother showed him how to play C, G, and the clawhammer G. The moment he grasped those chords, his excitement went through the roof, so much so that young Jerry practically drove his mother crazy. Every day, Cynthia would come home exhausted from the mill, only to find Jerry already sitting there with his guitar in hand, begging to learn something new. The family was struggling financially, so they couldn't even afford a proper guitar pick, but Jerry didn't let that stop him. "I just used a nickel as my pick and strummed the way Mama showed me," he once recalled. The guitar itself was worn and rusty, but it was enough. Enough for Jerry to discover his passion and glimpse the future he was determined to create. That old guitar didn't just teach Reed chords, it taught him the essence of being an entertainer. And when it came to performing, he had a magnetic presence no one could deny. Reflecting on those early days, Jerry shared, "I'd sit on the trunk in the kitchen. I'd get up there 'cause I wanted to be on stage, you know. I always wanted to be an entertainer, and I don't have any other memories of ever wanting to be anything else." The stage wasn't just a dream for Jerry Reed. It was his destiny. Jerry Reed's story perfectly captures what it means to chase a dream against all odds. He was living proof that success often follows seasons of struggle and perseverance. But after soaking up everything his mother could teach him, Jerry knew it was time to level up. It was time to learn from the real pros. However, he quickly realized that many teachers wanted him to follow the same old patterns, the exact techniques everyone else was using. But Jerry was different. He didn't want to mimic someone else's style. He was determined to carve his own path and let his natural playing style define his music. And as you'd expect, that decision came with its fair share of obstacles. In fact, Reed faced constant skepticism. People often asked who taught him to play the guitar, and when he answered that he was mostly self-taught, they either burst into laughter or gave him blank, disbelieving stares. The truth? Jerry Reed only ever took 2 formal lessons in his entire life, and when the instructor's advice didn't resonate, he walked away and never looked back. Reed recounted the experience during a 1969 interview. "I took lessons from some guy in the neighborhood. I don't even remember his name. But after 2 lessons, I knew it wasn't for me." And just like that, the boy with a nickel for a pick and a woodpile for a stage began crafting a sound that would one day leave the music world in awe. Everything was going smoothly until Jerry's tutor told him to ditch his thumb pick. And that was it. The aspiring musician didn't take kindly to that advice. He quit on the spot, deciding he'd teach himself instead by carefully listening to his musical heroes on the radio. One of his earliest and most profound influences? Merle Travis, a singer-songwriter from Western Kentucky who would unknowingly shape Jerry Reed's entire playing style. It's a shame that Merle Travis's name doesn't surface more often when people talk about country music's golden era. Travis wasn't just a performer, he was a guitar genius, a true maestro. His effortless fingerstyle technique became known as Travis picking, influencing an entire generation of musicians. And among those who admired him most? A young Jerry Reed sitting by the radio trying to mimic every note. But Travis wasn't just a master of strings. He was a storyteller unafraid to speak hard truths. His lyrics painted vivid pictures of the struggles faced by coal miners and working-class Americans. In a country grappling with social and economic turbulence, his music resonated deeply with people like Reed, whose own parents toiled away in a cotton mill. For Jerry, Merle Travis wasn't just a musician, he was a revelation. And one song in particular struck a chord, "I Am a Pilgrim." The soulful, heartfelt tune became a guiding light for Reed, fueling his desire to create music that was authentic, raw, and relatable. The first time Jerry Reed heard "I Am a Pilgrim" with its intricate guitar work, he was completely stunned. The sound was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. In that moment, he knew, if he was going to chase a music career, he'd have to tap into the spirit of Merle Travis. As Reed later recalled, "I thought when I heard it, boy, there it is. That man is walking with the big dog. He knows where the bodies are buried, and I want some of that." By the time Reed enrolled at Atlanta's O'Keefe High School, he was still glued to his guitar, experimenting with new sounds and writing original songs that had a captivating, fresh quality. Songwriting and singing were undoubtedly his biggest passions, but Jerry was also starting to push the boundaries of what it meant to be an entertainer. Soon enough, his curiosity led him toward acting and theater. His natural charm and quick wit made him a standout performer on stage. Before long, he was landing lead roles during his freshman and sophomore years at O'Keefe. Jerry Reed was thriving. Acting gave him the chance to step into different roles, explore new forms of expression, and most importantly, play for a captive audience. But the thrill didn't last forever. By his junior year, Jerry Reed had grown disillusioned with school. He felt that sitting in a classroom only robbed him of valuable time he could spend practicing his music. In his mind, traditional education didn't matter. He already knew exactly what he wanted to do with his life. So, without much hesitation, he dropped out of high school and took a day job at the Atlanta cotton mill. But the mill was just a means to an end. The moment his shift ended, Jerry was out the door, guitar in hand, heading straight to his next gig. Night after night, he hit as many local honky-tonks as possible, determined to sharpen his performance skills. From bustling Atlanta street corners to dimly lit, underground bars, Reed was everywhere, playing his heart out. At first, his sound echoed the styles of country greats like Hank Williams and Tommy Collins. He admired those legends so deeply that he patterned much of his early music after theirs. But even as a teenager, Reed's guitar skills were something special, something unmistakably his own. Atlanta locals began to take notice. In fact, in 1954, his growing reputation took a surprising turn when a local policeman stopped in his tracks, mesmerized by Reed's lightning-fast fingers and magnetic stage presence. That moment would mark the start of something much bigger for the young musician with dreams far too large for a cotton mill. Recognizing the young musician's undeniable talent, the policeman, Leroy Sooner, took it upon himself to give Jerry Reed a shot at something bigger. Sooner introduced the teenager to Bill Lowry, a well-known figure in Atlanta's music scene. Lowry had once been a popular disc jockey in the region, but after his peak years on the airwaves, he transitioned into music publishing. He also hosted a widely followed live country music show every Saturday morning on WGST radio. Sooner arranged an audition, and when the day finally came, Reed didn't disappoint. In fact, he left Lowry completely speechless. Years later, in a 1989 interview with Jim Schmid, Lowry reminisced about that unforgettable moment. He boldly performed an original self-penned tune titled Aunt Meg's Wooden Leg. That bold choice sealed the deal. However, the experienced music publisher also recognized that Jerry had a long road ahead. His guitar skills were exceptional, but his songwriting needed refinement. And the best way to learn that craft? Surrounding himself with industry professionals who had already mastered the art of writing hits. For Jerry Reed, this was more than just a lucky audition. It was the gateway to the next chapter of his musical journey. It was Bill Lowry who secured Jerry Reed's very first big break, a 30-day tour as the opening act for Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours. And so, at just 17 years old, Reed hit the road with Tubb and his band, stepping into a world of roaring crowds, long bus rides, and the electric thrill of live performances. The kid with a nickel for a pick was no longer just a hopeful dreamer. He was officially in the game. The young musician still had a long road ahead in his solo career, but under Lowry's mentorship, he found himself surrounded by seasoned artists who helped him sharpen his craft. One of the most remarkable moments of this journey came when Lowry introduced Reed to Capitol Records, an opportunity most aspiring musicians could only dream of. With each performance, his confidence grew, and his skills as a guitarist and entertainer solidified. Lowry also secured him a part-time job as a disc jockey at WGST radio, a perfect way for the young musician to stay connected to the music world when he wasn't performing. By day, he worked his regular job, but when night fell, he hit the stage with Kenny Lee and the Western Playboys. Performing with the group night after night became a game-changer for Reed. And the best part? There was always a live audience giving Jerry instant feedback on what worked and what didn't. Every performance sharpened his instincts, helping him grow not just as a guitarist, but as a true entertainer. Then came the milestone. At just 18 years old, Jerry released his very first record under Lowry's guidance, If the Good Lord's Willing and the Creek Don't Rise. It didn't break records or send shockwaves through the industry. After all, Jerry Reed was still a relatively unknown name. But for the teenager with big dreams and a guitar in hand, this was the first major step toward the stardom he had always envisioned. Jerry Reed's debut song didn't go unnoticed for long. In 1958, Cash didn't just record If the Good Lord's Willing and the Creek Don't Rise. He actively promoted it, giving credit to the young musician who had supported him on various projects. And once Cash gave it his stamp of approval, other artists followed suit, turning Reed's debut into a well-known tune across the country music landscape. With this newfound attention, Reed's popularity at Capitol Records soared. But here's the twist. His first major success with Capitol didn't even come from a country song. Instead, Jerry Reed made waves with his 1956 rockabilly hit, When I Found You. The track wasn't just catchy. It had a fresh, innovative arrangement that immediately caught the industry's attention. Behind the scenes, music executives were impressed with Reed's versatility. And while rockabilly opened the door, Jerry never lost sight of his true goal to break into the country music scene and leave his mark for good. But despite his undeniable talent, the general public remained largely unaware of Jerry's contributions. The studio never heavily promoted his name, and the covers didn't make it far beyond the recording booths. Still, within the industry, his more successful peers couldn't stop raving about his skills. The real breakthrough, however, came in 1958 when Reed's label mate, John Vincent, recorded Crazy Legs, one of Jerry's original compositions. The song exploded in popularity. Although it was Vincent's voice that people heard on the radio, the label was quick to give credit where it was due. Jerry Reed was officially recognized as the genius behind the track's infectious rhythm and sharp, flowing lyrics. This newfound recognition prompted Lowry to make a strategic move. He signed Jerry to his company, National Recording Corporation, NRC. The year 1959, he had to enlist in the U.S. Army. His dreams of country music stardom were put on pause as he prepared to serve his country. But even in uniform, Jerry Reed's musical spark never dimmed. His comeback was inevitable, and the music world was already bracing for it. After being discharged from the military, in 1962, Jerry and his wife Priscilla packed their belongings and moved to Music City, a place where stars were made, and where Reed hoped to etch his name into country music history. That same year, Reed signed a deal with Columbia Records, eager to reignite his career. He released 2 minor pop hits, Goodnight Irene and Hully Gully Guitar. While both songs gained some traction, neither catapulted him into mainstream stardom. His skills landed him gigs as both a session and touring musician, contributing his signature sound to multiple chart-topping hits, including those by Bobby Bare. Despite this steady success, Reed's career wasn't quite hitting the heights he envisioned. That's when Chet Atkins stepped in once again. Recognizing Jerry's potential, Atkins helped him sign with RCA Records, but this wasn't just another contract. Chet made Jerry a promise. Do whatever feels right, no rules, no restrictions. With that freedom, Reed finally let loose in the studio. He stopped trying to mimic others and instead leaned into his own creative instincts. It was during these sessions that he developed a style that was impossible to ignore, a style that later became known as the claw. The name came from the distinctive shape of his right hand as he played. By 1967, the music industry was hungry for its next cultural hit, and Reed delivered, releasing his self-penned smash, Guitar Man. The track didn't just resonate with fans, it caught the ear of none other than Elvis Presley, who immediately wanted to record it. Reed followed up with another hit that same year, Tupelo, Mississippi Flash, a playful comic tribute to the king of rock and roll. The song added a touch of humor to Reed's growing reputation. But more importantly, it laid the foundation for his future collaborations with Presley. When Elvis decided to cover Guitar Man, he didn't just admire the song, he wanted the original guitarist on the track. In 1970, Reed and Chet Atkins teamed up for the instrumental album Me and Jerry. The project was an instant hit, earning the duo a Grammy Award. Just a year later, he won the Grammy for Best Country Vocal Performance, Male, with his unforgettable anthem, When You're Hot, You're Hot. In 1993, he received another nod, this time for Sneakin' Around, a mesmerizing guitar duet with his longtime collaborator Chet Atkins. Reed's marriage and tragic end. In 1959, he married country singer Priscilla Mitchell, and together they built a life that was both supportive and enduring. Of course, their marriage had its challenges. In fact, they faced a major hurdle almost immediately. Not long after saying "I do," Reed received his draft notice and had to leave the country to serve in the U.S. Army. While Jerry Reed was serving in the Army, Priscilla stayed home and continued building her own music career. But when her husband was finally discharged, she shifted her focus, becoming his biggest supporter as he set out, once again, to reignite his musical journey. Over their remarkable 61-year marriage, the couple welcomed two daughters, Sidina Ann Hubbard, born in 1960, and Charlotte Elaine Zavala, born in 1970. Music ran deep in the Reed family. Sidina and Charlotte eventually followed in their parents' footsteps, venturing into country music themselves. With Jerry as their mentor, the sisters navigated the complexities of the industry, carrying on the family's musical legacy. But their shared musical journey was cut short when tragedy struck, not once, but twice. On September 1st, 2008, Jerry Reed passed away in Nashville due to complications from emphysema, a severe lung infection. He was 71 years old. The country music world collectively mourned the loss of a man whose talent had left an indelible mark on the genre. Jerry Reed wasn't a heavy drinker. He never fell into the traps of hard drugs, shared a family friend. But there was one habit he couldn't shake: smoking cigarettes. It was a lifelong addiction that ultimately led to his battle with lung disease, a fight that ended far too soon. He often joked about it, even wrote songs about it. But what most fans didn't realize was just how deeply his addiction had taken hold by the late 1990s. Reed tried repeatedly to quit, but the nicotine grip was relentless. Ironically, back in 1972, Reed had released Another Puff, a cautionary song that painted a vivid picture of someone desperately trying to quit smoking. The loss of the country legend hit his family hard. His wife, Priscilla, was devastated. In the years following Reed's death, she sank into a deep sadness and depression. The grief eventually took its toll, and in 2014, she passed away. Today, their daughters, Sidina and Charlotte, continue to honor their father's legacy. Through their music and public tributes, they ensure that Jerry Reed's spirit, songs, and signature claw style remain timeless treasures in the world of country music. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.